Hi, my name is Jason Morgan. Welcome into my studio, also onto my YouTube channel, and I'm testing out a few pastel papers for you today. If you've seen some of my other videos, you know that I've tested sanded papers against things like ingress and other types of paper. So we've narrowed down now for detail and for doing more layers that we need those sanded type of papers. Now, some of you can't get them easily, the ones that I suggest, like I use Pastelmat a lot. You can't get it perhaps very easily in the States. So I've tried some other papers out to test for you, and I've got a new one here, UArt. Been around for a few years, so that's got some really great properties. I've got also Pastel card. So you may or may not have heard of that one. And then I'll test it against my trusty old Pastelmat, so you can see how they all compare. So let's take a look. Okay, so here's the papers on test. Pastelmat, UArt, I got the trial pack because of all the grades in there, and Pastel card. So the Pastelmat comes in individual sheets, or you can buy packs like this, which will have, this one's got 4 colours in, and there's various packs you can get. The Pastel card, I believe you can get in individual sheets. I've only bought it in this pack so far. And the UArt, I know you can buy in individual sheets again, or loose sheets, and they're also doing pads as well. I believe they started doing those now, and you can also get them in a mount board. Okay, I'm pretty sure you can get a Pastelmat in a mount board as well. I haven't yet, I've just stuck with it, either individual sheets or in the pads. But this UArt mount board really is super thick, excellent. Feels like it's on kind of like a foam core type of thing, and the paper is really fastly adhered to the surface, and it seems like the perfect and ideal surface really, because it is so rigid as well, so you're not going to get any warping of it. But I haven't used that, and I don't even know if it's actually out yet on the market to purchase, but that's something to keep in mind. So Pastelmat, you've probably seen on my other videos, is a superb surface, comes in different colors. I'm not going to bother talking on this video about all the other types of papers, the ingress type papers, because if you've seen those videos you'll know it just doesn't work at all for doing many layers and for actually doing the techniques that I like to do. So I'm not bothering with those papers anymore, because they just it's not cost effective if you're buying things and then not using it, and it's just staying in your drawer, or your artwork has been ruined. So, you know, these papers, the thing you've got to keep in mind, sometimes people think they're expensive for a pad, and they are expensive when you first pay out, but when you think you may be spending 8 hours or so, or lots more, on your artwork, you know, if you was pricing it up against canvas, pastel papers is still cheaper than canvases anyway. Okay, just something to keep in mind. So the Pastel card, 360 grams, the Pastelmat, 360 grams, allegedly. One of them, the Pastel card is much thicker, so one of them is not 360 grams, I dare say. But if I put them on a flat surface, this is much thicker, the Pastel card. Okay. Let's talk about UArt a moment. The UArt comes in 7 different grades, so 7 different roughnesses, and they go from 800 to 240. So the 800 is the smoothest, the 240 is the roughest, and they're a sanded pastel paper. Now, I'm not sure if Pastelmat and Pastel cards call themselves sanded papers or just pastel papers, but when it's got a texture to the surface, that's what I call a sanded paper. Now, let's remove the actual pads, and we can have a close look at these papers side by side, because that's what it's all about. Now, so I'm not sure how it's coming up on screen, but the UArt is a very light coloured paper. It's a creamy colour to it. When you compare it to the white of the background, for instance, The pastel card comes in all different colours, the Pastelmat comes in all different colours. The UArt doesn't, but there's a reason for that. So if we compare the surface texture first. So surface texture wise, the Pastelmat Clairefontaine, yes, it's a sanded surface, but it's got kind of a silky feel to it. It's not very rough at all. So if we look in the UArt, then comparison wise, 400's rougher, 500 should obviously be done by this, so let's get that in order. My assistants, I'm going to have to sack them, I swear, if I even had an assistant. Okay, 600, close. 800 is probably the closest you're going to get. It's a different feel anyway. Hard to say, but between 600 and 800 is the closest you're going to get. Now the pastel card, it's not necessarily rougher, but it's a larger grain to the surface. Okay, so now I'm looking at, for that texture on the surface, I'd say possibly, it's too rough, 280, 320, 400, between the 320 and the 280, similar to the pastel card. Now what I find with pastel card is it's got kind of a dustiness to it. So okay, there's nothing on the table there, so if I go like that, you see the surface actually would come off slightly. So that's something to keep in mind with pastel card. Lots of great artists use it, so I know it works for real detailed subjects. With the UArt, if I take the roughest one, nothing on the surface there, and I rub it, nothing is coming off at all. And with the pastel matte, nothing comes off again. So that's something to keep in mind. So I'll keep out those two because they are similar, and if I keep out the, well, let's say the 600 and the 320. So 600 is very similar to that, 320 is very similar to the pastel card. Now, differences. With pastel matte, putting water on the surface doesn't affect it. With the UArt, putting water on the surface doesn't affect it. With pastel card, different story completely. So let's take a look at that and let me show you what happens. Okay, so just got a little bit of water, pipette. Now I'm doing this for the reason being, it's quite possible you want to put a coloured under drawing, painting on there. So you can use gouache or acrylic. Some of them you could even use oils, but let's stick with the waters for now. And so you can put in like a tonal underpainting, just like I would with oils. Not that many people do it with pastels really, but you know, it's a possibility. So I'll put that on there, and I'll put that on there, and I'll rub it in a little bit, just so it's on the surface. And let's zoom in and have a look. In fact, now I've zoomed in, I might as well do the UArt right down below it. And I put a good blob of paint, water on there as well. So this is simulating. Let's put some more on your gouache, okay? Now, it may not be necessarily what pastel card is even designed for or anything, but I'm doing it because, let's get some tissue. I know some pastel artists want to put a coloured layer on there. In fact, let's take a cottonwool bud. So I'll leave that one for now. The Pastelmat, perfectly fine. Yeah, so that works with things like gouache and watercolour. I'm not sure if we can put oil paint on there. UArt says you definitely can. Acrylics, oils, watercolours. And the pastel card, so let's turn that around. Surface comes off completely, easily, right down to the backing board. Now, something to keep in mind here. lots of pastel artists, when they're working, they blow the dust off. Whether you're supposed to or not for health reasons, I'm not getting into, but some do. If you blow it and a tiny dot of saliva comes out of your mouth and goes on your pastel work, it's ruined. I've got an example here where I did some tests, and there you go. So that's pastel card. I'm not sure if you can see that, but can you see the little indentations in there? That's tiny bits of water that I blew on there just to try it out, and if you rub it at all slightly, you're down to the white backing board and your drawing is ruined. There's no way you can bring that back as far as I know. You can't seem to fill it in with more pastel. I tried it, there's nothing for the pastel to adhere to, so you can't build up a layer. Once it's gone, it's gone. So whatever pastel card you're using as the adhesive to stick this sand or whatever they're using to give the texture onto the surface, it's no good with water. It's not impervious to water at all. It's the water is just melting it straight away. The UArt, perfectly fine, no effect whatsoever. So that's just something to keep in mind, and it really doesn't take a lot to go on the pastel card of water. If you did blow it, it would be ruined, and that'd be heartbreaking if you spent lots and lots of hours. So if you're going to use pastel card, and as I've said, I've seen some superb work done on pastel card. If you're going to use it, don't blow the surface whatsoever. Either get yourself some sort of a blowing thing, or just tap any dust off and work upright on it. Okay, so what are these surfaces like to blend with? Obviously it all differs as to what type of pastels you're using. Are you going to use a soft pastel? You're using a pastel pencil, or according to what effects you want. So I'm just using this small set just for the demonstration, and it's just a Faber-Castell Creative, so they're the cheaper ones of the Faber-Castell. They're kind of a mid-range, they're not hard, they're not soft, and I thought they would be okay to try out. And I'll try something really vibrant like that purple, and I'll try something like that as well, just to give you an idea. If you haven't purchased any papers at all, and perhaps all you've used are those ingress type papers, then you know you're not going to have any surprises if you see what I'm doing here. So let's have a look at my trusty favorite Pastelmat Clay Fontaine. So I know I love this paper, but the good thing with testing other papers are that, you know, sometimes you can't get hold of your paper. Perhaps you've only got, you know, access to one of these other papers. So let's see how they compare. Okay, so you can probably hear it as well. That's very light pressure I'm doing. Just taking the pastel, very, very easy. Look at the vibrance of the colour. And let's do this purple as well at the same time. Okay, just round strokes. I use my little finger to blend this one. Go out a bit to get all the pastel in the surface. Okay, I use this different finger to blend this one. Okay, so thing to look at, keep in mind, virtually no dust. If you can hear that noise in the background, there's a cockerel in the garden. So no dust to the surface. So if you're worried about health issues or lots of dust coming from pastel, with Pastelmat you're not going to get that much. Okay, so if I just go down slightly, I might as well do the UArt straight on top here, so we can look at it side by side. Very, very similar feel. It's perhaps creating a bit more dust because it's actually taking the pastel more easily than the Pastelmat did. So I think the surface, the 600, is actually slightly rougher. So back to that finger. Let's see what happens with the dust. Blending in very, very easily. It grabs the pastel more. This sanded paper, can you feel it or hear it? Where my finger is skipping a bit. And this purple, vibrancy, about the same. It looks a bit more vibrant on this because obviously it's a lighter paper. But the good thing with the UArt is because you can put those water-based or oil-based mediums on there, like acrylics and gouache, you can tone the back or tone the paper whatever you want. You're not limited to what the supplier is saying. Like Pastelmat does a great range of colours, but you know, perhaps it's not the colour I want. With UArt I can colour it myself. Okay, so that's those two, and I think I can get this one in sneakily by the side. Pastel card, so this is a rougher paper. See the texture straight away? But the good thing is that means it could take more layers. With the UArt we've got that option of just buying the rougher grade. One thing I don't like about this pastel card, well, I don't like the fact that any moisture on there ruins it for a fact, but I don't like the way this surface dust comes off a little bit. Blending in, not really grabbing my finger like the UArt. See the texture of the paper there? It seems a bit more dusty as well. It does seem to be a bit dustier, like it's not grabbing the pastel as much. Let's see if we can see it more on this purple. It's actually rough on my finger as well. It's hurting my finger a bit because it's rough. You wouldn't want to be blending with your finger that much. And can you see the dust there? I don't know whether that's the actual surface of the paper dust or the dust of the pastel, but it's not grabbed it like these two for sure. So more dust is going to be created with the pastel card. Okay, so that's where it blends like that. What a lot of people like to do, if I can grab this, is put on some pencils as well. So here's my trusty Derwent pencil set, pastels, and what I'm going to do is pop those to the side and we can have a look at just a couple of these pencils. So let's pick something vibrant again, and let's pick something something dark, black. Okay, so what's the difference here? So let's zoom in a little bit on this one. Okay, so let's have a look at the pencils. So personally, as you probably know, I like wildlife, so I like doing details. Pastelmat has got a great ability of holding lots of layers and giving me the ability to paint or draw fine lines. I can also obviously blend with it and build up layers too. Run out of fingers. So you can see that blends well, gives me nice fine lines. Get some layering. So it's layering nicely. Okay, so let's go down and have a look at the UArt. The 600 is a rougher surface for sure. It's taking the pencil down a lot more. So let's take a quick look. Since we got it in our set, let's take a look at the 800. Not a massive amount of difference, I don't think. Definitely a bit rougher, the 600, and it's gonna take down the paper, the pencil, that bit more than the Pastelmat. So let's just have a look at layering. Layers wonderfully. In fact, I'd say personally layers better than Pastelmat, because it's got that, it is a sandpaper, you know, at the end of the day it's a very fine sandpaper, but look at that, even more vibrant. Okay, that's good. Excellent. Let's have a look at these. Scenalia, are we in video? Yep. Obviously that's not going to show up much on here. You can see the roughness of it. but you know, it would take the layers. So a bit of a trade-off. What about layering? Not as vibrant as that UArt. What you're actually seeing is the texture of the paper, making it look a bit gritty. So obviously you can layer as well. So at the end of the day, I'm not really here to tell you which paper to use, because everyone's got their own personal preferences of what they want. I just know which ones I would like. I love Pastelmat. Pastel card, it's got a couple of problems with me. It's a little bit rough. I don't like that fact you can wipe the surface and dust comes off of it. I hate the fact that any moisture going on there ruins it instantly. If you're in the habit of blowing your work, obviously you shouldn't be, but if you're in the habit of doing it and a little bit of saliva goes on there, like I said, it's ruined. And that could be on the last 5 minutes, as luck would have it. It wouldn't be at the beginning, it'd be at the end. The UArt, super interesting. Should be a grade in there for anybody. It holds the pastel. There's very, very little dust, comparable to Pastelmat. Vibrancy seems even greater, to be honest. You can tone the paper with gouache, acrylic. I haven't tried it myself, but we tried that water test and that worked perfectly. So, well, perhaps if I grab a bit of what have I got here? Have I got anything that I could actually use? Yep, I got a little brush, I got some gouache. Let's give it a go. That's what testing's all about. Let's see what we could do. See what happens. Small amount of water. Create a wash. Here you go, and just put in some gouache. There. Now obviously, pastel card, waste of time even thinking of doing it with that, because we know the surface is going to come straight off. So if we have a look at a small amount of this UArt, check it's in camera, yes. So how simple would that be to tone the paper? And I tell you what else you could do. You could actually do your stripes and things on a tiger black, and then they're going to get more, it'll take much less layers of pastel to do it, to go on top to get it nice and black. Try the Pastelmat. Yep, and that seems to work just as well really on there, which I expected. So obviously gouache dries, you know, a different matte surface, which is great for pastel, because I wouldn't want a shiny surface on there as well. I can't see any problems with that. It's drying already, it's not rubbing off. That's staying wet though, so this is taking it into the surface much quicker, and that's wet on the surface. So let's just let those dry, because I'm doing these tests at the moment and there's things I haven't done before myself, and we just let those dry, come back and see what happens. Okay, so they're both dry. I dried them with a hairdryer, and both of these papers can be prone to curling up slightly, so you'd want to tape them down, and that's a great thing with the new pastel boards that come out. I know with Pastelmat it's much more expensive on the board, and I should imagine the UArt will be as well, just because it costs so much more for them to actually process and make. So it looked initially like the Pastelmat was drying really quick compared to the UArt, but it was actually just kind of sucking it into the surface. So when I was looking on the side and rubbing it, you could see the sheen moving around, so it wasn't actually dry. So obviously now I've still got that texture. It doesn't feel like I've really filled up much of the tooth of the paper at all on either of them doing that. And they both layer in again really well, so that's something to keep in mind. So summing it up, it's pointless me telling you about prices with these three, because wherever you are in the world, these prices are going to be different. I know in the UK the Pastelmat is cheaper, but Pastel card in the UK for me was really expensive. The UArt I think is much easier to get hold of if you're in the USA. So you know, you're going to have to look at these suppliers yourself and work out what's best for you to try. But hopefully this quick review of the three of them shows you some advantages and disadvantages, so you can save your money and probably buy the thing that's best for you and the way you use pastels as well straight off. So hope you've enjoyed that quick review, and I'll see you all again real soon. If you're looking for more art resources, I've really got you covered. I've got a dedicated tutorial website, that's jasonmorgan.co.uk. Lots of videos on there, ebook tutorials, you name it, it's on that site. I've got a Patreon art channel. So every month I put up brand new videos, and that could be pastel videos, oils, charcoals, they're full-length videos, and there's also photo references with the Easy Trace line art on there. I've got quite a few hundred people supporting me, and that's on Patreon. And also, if you're after even more reference photos, I got a dedicated website just packed with reference photos. I think there's about 900 on there at the moment. So that's wildlifeart-online.com. Now please, with my YouTube channel, new videos coming on here as well. If you can possibly subscribe to the channel, then you're never going to miss out on new videos.